So good morning, everybody. This is Tom Blattner. Gene and I started this enterprise about 20 years ago, it seems now, Gene, which is hard to believe. And I think we were at a really, really interesting point in our history. This, fundamental change, or we've been calling for transformational change, is never easy. But I think that we're going to be able to do some really good things in the coming year. And it's primarily as a result of all the tremendous work you are all doing. Bob Grassi, nice to see you. So there are a number of people who I wanted to welcome. I don't know if you're here or not, but we have a good crowd from Monmouth County. I've been talking about Monmouth County and Monmouth Axe and all the amazing work they're doing there. So I think Peter Boynton is with us, who's the director of the Department of Human Services and the chair of Monmouth Axe. Peter, if you're here, welcome.
He's right there.
I don't know how to view all this, but Peter, you're so welcome to be with us. And we're hoping you and your team are going to come in at one of the next meetings early next year and really lay your whole initiative out, because it's truly inspiring. I think Kathy Collins is here, who is also the co-chair of Monmouth Axe. Lynn Seward, who's the director of behavioral health, and Justin Knobloch, who's the director of a new division or office of children and families from Monmouth County, is here. So we're really lucky to have a whole cadre of new folks from Monmouth County. Wendy DePedro, who is the executive director of the Monmouth County Mental Health Association, and the co-convener of the Behavioral Health Hub, is here, and you'll hear a little bit from her a little later. So hello, Monmouth County. I'm so delighted that you're here. Ingi from Patterson Alliance, welcome. And your work is, it's just seminal to everything we're trying to do. So we're really glad that you have joined us. We have our terrific supporters, Lucy Vandenberg from the Schumann Fund and Kathy Malone from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, who have allowed us to continue our community action forums, which we're going to be talking a little bit about today. And we hope somewhere in the course of this meeting, we will have our amazing assembly champion, Reginald Atkins.
He's here. He is here and joined us already.
Oh, fantastic.
Yo!
So without further ado, why don't we hear from you, Assemblyman? You have been a literal and figurative champion of ours. Your support has been incredible. Your participation in our rally was inspiring. And as I mentioned, transformational change is not easy, but with you as a champion and as a supporter and a point person for really making some changes that will help families, we are so grateful to you. So Assemblyman, I will give the floor to you, please.
Grace and peace, everybody. Thank you so very much, Tom. I think and Tim, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think it's all about us banding together to fight for what's important. And that is the family. We gotta continue doing what we do to make sure that we have preemptive waves to make sure that our families are blessed and successful. If we invest in them, then our future is much brighter. And that's the reason why I'm fighting so hard in Trenton to make sure that we get this through. We have some hurdles that we had to jump. We're still jumping them. And whatever we need to do in order to get this across the finish line, that's what we're aligned to do. I do appreciate all the support. And I thank you very much for allowing me to champion this cause, because it's that important. Think about it. With this particular bill, we can say that we've given and we've deposited into our families what's needed to be successful. We're literally creating an ingredient that's going to make the family successful. And that's not just by words, that's not just by deeds, but that's also making sure that financially it can be funded. So we're excited, and we're excited about the direction that it's going in. like I said, we still have some hurdles to cross, but I'm so happy that we have other champions that's aligning themselves up to make sure that this get across. Senator Ben Gopal, Assemblywoman McKnight, and we have some other champions that we've been working along with to make this happen, and we're excited about it. So just keep on praying, keep on writing, and we're doing it together. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We have to applaud you a little further than that. And people who may not know this need to hear a bit more. We introduced a first family community recovery and family success bill in the 2019 legislative session. It got a reasonable amount of attention, and cheers to Senator Vin Gopal for being a prime sponsor of that in that legislative session. And it didn't move all the way through the legislature, and therefore sat in a bin that I can't describe, of bills that were introduced but not passed, without any direction, inference, request from anyone in the Family Success Institute or movement. Reverend Assemblyman, as I like to call him, Reverend Assemblyman Atkins, found that bill, and as a freshman assemblyman, plucked it out of this bin of not treated bills and introduced it himself. I didn't know him at the time. I am so pleased to know him now, but it is just an indication that he read through it and recognized that the holistic, community-directed, and efforts to address the social determinants of health and to build and support success, not just treat distress, were central to what this state and frankly this country needs to do to ensure that there is opportunity for all and that all families can succeed. From that day, as Tom said, he has been a tireless champion, bringing this forward into the committee where it now sits. The chair of that committee, Siobhan DeSumter, has been an extraordinary supporter as well. We believe that that bill may get through in this last days of the session, and that's on you, Reverend Assemblyman. If by chance we're unsuccessful, he's already committed to making certain this gets done right off the bat in the beginning of the next session. We're not looking at that yet. All of you on this meeting call Zoom recognize that hearing from supporters of this legislation helps add momentum to the work that he and others are doing. And many of you, and this is where I wanted to thank you, have done a great deal, including sending letters of support to the governor's office, to all the members of the committee, and to our sponsors, indicating that this bill is transformational and will make a difference in the lives of those who, for many, many, many decades, some of which I've been alive for, but some that precede that, have been marginalized and given short shrift in terms of the public investment and support that they deserve. Reverend Assemblyman Atkins, thank you for being our champion. And let us know if there's anything more we can do. And in particular, if you think there is going to be a meeting of the committee, let us know so that we can redouble our expressions of support for this important legislation.
Absolutely. And once again, Tim and Tom, you guys have been just great. You've been a support. You've been a sounding board. And sometimes you've just been a person to just pat me on the back and say, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And we appreciate that. Trust me, I have the energy, and I just love it. And I love the partnership, and we're going to get this across the finish line.
Thank you.
Let me add just two other thoughts to what Tim has said about you, because I always look for a couple things. The first one is, how do people who don't have power relate to people who do have power, and vice versa? And your participation in that rally in Trenton and the way that you embrace the folks there and they embrace you just means everything to me. And it's really what this is all about. And then secondly, as a man of spirituality, you don't take no for an answer. you understand that there are, rules and regulations and protocols and, habits that everybody's in, and your way of bursting through them with, with God's grace is it's very, very inspiring to me. So I just want to thank you for being who you are. And I know we are going to be successful together. Terrific. Anybody have any questions or thoughts for the Assemblyman before we? Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, Assemblyman, for joining us, and we will continue our partnership.
You got it.
So there are a couple other people I just wanted to welcome to our group. We have Caitlin Mulcahy, who has been such a critical voice and practitioner and teacher in the importance of early childhood stuff. Caitlin, thank you for being here. The person I call the Oracle of Family Success, Thomas Owens. I think Thomas is here, but if he's here, I'll ask him to say a couple of words later. And Sean Lacan, somebody else who's been with us. So I just am so happy that people are sticking with this process. And I am going to turn over the agenda to Kathy Rowe after I say a couple of words about her. Don't worry, Kathy, they won't be terribly honest. So Kathy Rowe and I have known each other for a long time, and Kathy has been a tireless and spirited advocate and partner for parents being involved in the decisions that impact their lives. And Kathy has recently earned a well-deserved retirement from Parents Inc. She serves on the Family Success Institute board, and she has agreed to take up the work of supporting the learning community in a more robust way and tying the work of our community action forums to the growth of the learning community. And Kathy, I think one of the things that we both have seen through these community action forums, that we've proved a couple things. One, I think we have, decisively proven that when residents have safe places to go and participate and talk about their lives, not just what their needs are, but what their lives are like and what their conditions are like and the things that affect them and what they think are going to make things better. These community action forums have exceeded our expectations. We have more of them, we have more participants, and we have more to come. But I think as importantly, they have demonstrated that parents and community residents are incredibly strong partners in policymaking. And as we move towards a statewide summit that we are, that is part of our grant and part of our effort, the participants in these community action forums are going to be very much with us, alongside us at the table, and expressing their views about their lives and what they are aspiring to in their own lives. So, Kathy, I really thank you very, very much for everything you've done over all the years, but I'm also thanking you for what you're going to do, and I turn it to you.
Thanks, Tom. I'm just warning everybody, if Tom starts to talk really nice stuff about you, he's going to ask you to take over something, okay? He'll be like, oh, just, you're the best person in the world, so please, can't you run this committee for me? Can't you do this for me? So yeah, Tom, I know what you're doing. But I'm excited about the learning community and working to increase our learning community, make it more diverse. We should have representation from every county, from communities statewide. And we have an exciting team. And, really, Erica Harris Duval was supposed to give this presentation, but she had a medical emergency. So I'm going to see if I can do my best to do it. Now, as most of you know, we've been doing the community action forums for 2 years now, and we've completed 22 learning community forums. And I think what's really exciting about this is these forums are not just focus groups, because God knows we've all been there, right? How many needs assessments do we have to do to know what the problems are? How many focus groups do parents get called to give their input? our community action forums that all of you, most of you have done at least one. And if you haven't, I'm going to encourage you to reach out, because thanks to Robert Wood Johnson and thanks to the Schumann Fund, we actually have the support to do more forums in 2024. So that's really exciting to me. Also, the important thing about the parents and the families that attend these forums is that we want to take them with us as stakeholders to the summit that we're planning for next year. You know, we want this to be an all-inclusive summit, that it's not just the same old conference with the same old us, but that the members of the communities feel like they actually will have a voice in our family success movement. So I want to encourage all of you. I'm going to put Erica Duvall's email in the chat so that if you want to reach out to her, we can provide you with all kinds of support for these forums if you want to take one on. And if, when you look at this short video we put together, if you feel like, you know what, my parents aren't represented here, my families aren't represented here, I encourage you to reach out. Not only do we provide stipends for every parent who attends, we provide money for refreshments, money for a videographer, and you know, thanks to some terrific FSI board members, we'll even come and help you facilitate these forums. So think about it, and really, I hope you'll be excited by the video and say, you know what, I want my community on that next year. Tyler, if we could just start the video.
Absolutely. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can everybody hear this okay?
Not yet.
Try that again.
Kind of, you know,
Yes.
rebuilding the family now due to some of the things that have happened in the past. You know, when I say incentivize somebody getting benefits, there was a show, what was it called? Claudine? Yeah. So Claudine, basically, she had a boyfriend, but in order for her to get the benefits that she needed, she couldn't have a man in the household. So you're incentivizing the destruction of the family by saying that.
Some racial equity, but some of that systemic barrier would be the incarceration of, you know, part of the family dynamic, whether if it's just the mother, then the grandmother is now raising, or if it's mother and the father or the mother is incarcerated. That is a systemic barrier as it correlates with trying to, you know, have the unit, the family as a unit, and, you know, to receive resources or be accessible to.
Well, that's my problem. I'm like, is it more trouble than it's worth to have him involved? To tell him things, to make him, why am I gonna make my life harder? By allowing him to be in our life, like,
Why would
and
I
that's
put my
messed
vehicle
up
on
because
child
a
support?
child needs his father, but it's gonna be too hard for me to, like, I know that already before having the baby. It's gonna be too hard for me to qualify for the assistance I need if he's in the picture. And that's messed up. That reality is messed up because everybody needs
Because
two
they want you
parents.
to put him on child support and do home daycare.
That's-
That's in jail.
But beyond that, it's just why, you know, to have the extra person is gonna screw me in the end.
That's like when
Because
I
we won't
applied
be able to
for
qualify for certain things because his income, because of his things.
Mm-hmm.
So do I do the right thing, right? And, you know, let this person know they could be a part and they do what they gotta do?
No, they expect
Or
you
do
to
you
lie.
just
They want
do
you to say
nothing
that.
and,
They want you to say
you
you're
know?
not involved.
I like to see a place where we can gather during the day.
Like have a shower.
We have no place to go during the day, especially on the weekends. Weekends we're out on the street. No window, everything's closed. And on the weekend, we don't go someplace to eat, that's closed also. You know, we have like no place to gather, basically, you know what I'm saying? And there's plenty of room. I mean, there's rooms everywhere you look in this town. You know, nobody wants to take the initiative to go find out if they can rent or if they can rent them or what they're gonna do with it.
I went to I went to a vocational school in New York City, and I became an electrician that was working in it. But after the service, I went to City College, and it cost me nothing. Was totally free. And what I say to people, and what I think these people should hear that you're gathering this data for, it's a win-win situation. I never went on unemployment. I paid for my kids to go through college, no debt. And I've lived in good places. I support church. I've never, and I pay taxes. I've paid taxes, a lot of taxes, at the county level, state level, and so on. All that. So there's no downside. There's no downside to, to given the free education. I mean, like Brookdale, it wasn't totally free, but, but there's no downside to giving a free education at that.
A lot of these kids that are graduating from college, you know what they're doing? Moving back home with mom and dad.
Yeah.
Because they're graduating with $100,000 in debt right off the bat. Can't afford it. The jobs aren't paying, so they can't get an apartment, can't get their own place, and and make their student loan payments. So education is good. Everybody's not built for college.
Right.
And I think we have to, especially for our younger men, there are other career paths that you can take that make good money. Plumbers make really good money. HVAC guys make really good money.
Terrific.
Thank you, Tyler. I really appreciate that. Any comments, questions? Yeah, Rebecca.
I can find my unmute. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Resilience for the state of New Jersey. And this is the first time I've been able to attend one of your meetings. So I'm really excited to be here and excited about the work that you're doing. I was wondering, I'm aware of a couple other forums that are going on in the state. And I'm just wondering if there's any desire to connect. You said about, expanding your reach. One in particular is an organization that got one of our micro grants. It's called Be Inc. Collective in Camden, New Jersey. And it's a woman, Xiomara Wedderburn, who has reworked the parent cafe model. And so now she's doing family cafes. And it sounds similar to what y'all are doing in that they provide food, childcare, giveaways, but she's been able to draw over 100 families in Camden to engage in similar conversations, and they're rich, just like what I'm seeing on this brief video. So I'm just wondering if you're connecting with any other organizations that are doing similar work. Thank you.
I think that would be great. And, certainly we would love to have her become a member of our learning community. And if she wanted to host a forum, community action forum for us, that would be terrific. So, any folks that you run into, I mean, our whole goal is to increase our reach and to bring really meaningful shared leadership with families in communities forward. So, as we move towards this summit, it's vital. So we really appreciate you jumping in, Rebecca, and you can connect them up. I put my email in the chat, and Erica's is there as well. So we'd be happy to talk to them, and anybody else that you can think of, invite them.
Thank you.
Rebecca, I'll add to that, because we are, one of the things we have said from the very start of our work is that we want to collaborate and partner and connect with everybody. And we have made a number of attempts with some of our local initiatives to connect with folks from the state, and we haven't been that successful. So we would like to partner with you, and you're very, very welcome to, join this effort, and any ideas you have about how we might, partner and collaborate in a wholesome way and an equal way, we would be delighted.
That would be wonderful. We're trying to connect with all 21 counties. So I do think there's no need to work in silos. We can do so much better when we collaborate. So I'm right with you.
Good.
Any other comments, questions?
How are the videos being used? Some of the ways that after they're made, because we're doing some of this in Monmouth, but it's new to us. So
Let me jump in on that and speak on behalf of Erica Harris DeValve, who is the director of this project. She is the purpose of the videos in terms of creating a compendium of information is to both have essentially a landscape of the diversity of interests and needs and communities across the state. There's an objective coming up on that. But also to link together the commonality that those diverse geographic, demographic communities share in terms of where does the public sector structure, efforts, initiatives, and investments fall short. And while I would argue that almost everyone, I would say everyone in this meeting has some understanding of that, there's a broad either sense that we don't focus attention on where those common points of achievement and opportunity for a change in how the public sector operates in its efforts to create a fairer New Jersey, to use our governor's words, or a more equitable social and economic environment. And Erica's in the process of going through all of these videos and extracting those themes for the purpose of creating a framework, which we again are developing in a collaborative fashion with many of the people on this call, to structure the agenda for a statewide summit in which government, business, philanthropy, nonprofit sectors come together with these representatives of community to agree that these are priorities to which attention and resource can be devoted and begin to alleviate the imbalance, the inequity, and the inequality that exists, and which everyone is aware of, and we're struggling to find ways to do it. So they are a tool for ensuring the voices of these individuals and the communities they represent are going to be captured in this initial effort and then heard in a forum that has greater value and importance, because it will be designed to create actionable results, short-term and long-term.
I could, Kathy, I can add to that because I think these forums would have been, Tim and I have talked about this, that they have been incredibly affirmative of this family success holistic approach. I mean, if you took, the more you listen to them, the more you're saying, the way that we're thinking about, progress is affirmed by what's coming up in the substance of these forums, whether it's related to housing or racism or transportation, but it's very extremely real. It's not, it's not like people answering questions around a focus group. But the other part of it is literally allowing people who normally don't have a chance to participate in policy making and decision making to participate. And from what I understand from our friends in the Monmouth County, is that they are very, very excited about having these community action forums be a formal part of this updating of the needs assessment. So it's really has the potential of bringing, not only different voices into the process to highlight different issues, but change who's making the decisions. So as a leader of Monmouth Acts, you have a tool.
I also see we have some family success centers here today, Letitia Carter. And we would love it if every family success center would host a forum. I mean, talk about being the perfect fit. The participants are not just participants, they're stakeholders. And we want to move these stakeholders with us to the summit next year. So it's just really important that we continue to diversify the places we have these learning communities, these community action forums. Juanita, we certainly need more Spanish forums. We need the voices of Latinas. We need everybody in New Jersey. We need to be representative of folks that normally do these things and folks that don't. So again, the information is in the chat. If you're interested, call me, call Erica, email us, and we'll assist you to get one planned and on the calendar for next year.
Kathy, can I input real quick?
Mhm.
If you don't mind. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone. My name is David Armstrong. I'm a parent leader, parent partner from Essex County, New Jersey. I think this is great. I've been part of this learning initiative for a while now. It's awesome that you invite parents to the table while the table is being built. We want to co-design. We want to be a part of that process when we're making policies and procedures. So I want to just thank each and every one of you guys for not forgetting about the parents and their lived experience that we bring to the table. Nothing for us without us. We heard that before, right? So, for you want to know what's going on, you really have to go to the source. And by inviting parents to the table while it's being built, I appreciate that. And it's a difference between engagement and involvement. Not only do you engage parents, but you involve them and you respect their input and voices as the partner. So again, I just want to say thank each and every one of you guys. And it's good to see you.
David, thank you. Thank you. My God, I have been committed to meaningful shared leadership, shared power my whole career. And it's just so wonderful to hear from you that, you feel the same way.
Good morning, Kathy. It's Doreen Finley from Parents Inc. I just wanted to know when are you guys going to hold this summit next year? Do you have a date in mind?
We don't have a date yet. We're looking at the spring of next year, maybe April or May. But if you want to jump on the committee, we'd love to have you, Doreen.
My plate is full.
I'll bet.
We want to make certain there's sufficient time to engage the leaders from all sectors in the state to attend that. And we are in the process of enlisting that support now. And as soon as we have an aggregate number of people saying we're on board and we're ready to step up and take action in response to what you're learning through the learning community, we'll be able to settle on a date and a location and a format. But Doreen and others, your thoughts on how best to achieve that, recognizing that we're still working on the timetable, are welcome at any moment.
So Tom, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Okay, any other thoughts about the community action forums and what they're all about? And David, I really appreciate your words. And I think one of the commitments we made right from the beginning is that how to engage residents and parents, not only about what their needs and dreams and aspirations are, but as active participants in decisions that impact people. And that's where the transformational aspect of this comes. And it's not only in allocating resources and making sure that resources are what people want and need, but also, are they working? Do they make any difference or not? So your voice and your participation in this have been an inspiration all the way through. So I thank you, and it's great to see you. So now we go to the next item, which is the legislation, our legislation. And I want to make a couple of thank yous before we get into the substance of this. One is our primary team in terms of working on this has been Tim and Charlie and Kathy and myself. And I want to thank Tim for his unbelievably tireless work and brilliant strategy and trying to understand a process that's almost not understandable. But I also want to thank Tim and Charlie for trying to rein in Kathy's and some might call it enthusiasm, some might call it outrage because the pace of change and the sort of things that come up during change processes are, to me, are just like drive me crazy. And this idea of residents having what they need to have a good life, it's like, who can argue with it? But everybody finds a way to argue with it about things other than that. So Tim and Charlie, I want to thank you, for your patience and your maturity that I don't have. I won't speak for Kathy, but I really think that with your incredible voice and diligence and experience, I think we're going to get where we need to get. There have been some glitches in the legislative process, as the Assemblyman mentioned, which Tim will sort of review with us. But we're not going to stop. We're too far down the road to not to follow through on this mission that we're on. So, Timothy, I will allow you to temper.
Great. Let me say a couple of things quickly. The first is Senator Vin Gopal literally jumped on as the prime sponsor of this bill in early 2019 without a great deal of, and with actual almost no requirement for influence, like, will you please do this? He understood it right away. And this is what I think he understood. And I'm mentioning this because his schedule today calls for him to join us around 9:45, which is close to the end of our scheduled meeting. And I know everyone all the time, but in this holiday season in particular, is really busy. But if you can stay to the end, that is a great bonus that we will all enjoy. And he deserves our attention in no small part because of his advocacy all along. But it is his immediate grasp and commitment to the relevance of communities being empowered to pursue and achieve objectives that will strengthen those communities and make them able to achieve that same leveling process I described earlier, of where we have inequality, creating greater equality, where we have limited opportunity, creating greater opportunity. And nothing could be more central to family success than ensuring that the environment, the holistic environment in which they are engaged, is one that is on a track to greater improvement and result. And here's the important part that he understands: the state, the federal government, the upper levels of government have a very important role here in setting the stage and in helping to ensure that the resources that are aggregated at that level, that's programmatic, financial, are there. But without the guidance and direction that communities provide for themselves and that reflect the individual and unique circumstances that each community has, you have what was described earlier as siloed services. You have services that are top down and not reflective of individual concerns. That's what brought Senator Gopal to the table, and he has been a strong supporter of ours all along the way. I also, because I'm taking a step back here to give you a little background, Senator Nia Gill, who's retiring this year, early and active supporter, and was the prime sponsor on both occasions, as was Senator Gopal. Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, Reverend Assemblyman Atkins have been champions to bring this bill as far as it has in the legislature. And all of the components of this bill are a product that precedes my involvement here. That's why I give kudos to Charlie Venti, but also to a group, many of whom, again, are here at this meeting, who used their own experience and contributed their time to developing a legislation that reflects the principles of how do we achieve the social determinants of health for communities and families. How do we create a framework that is not only holistic, but that is sustainable and that is strengthened by the community, and at the same time strengthening the community, and through that strengthening families as well. That's what this bill is intended to do. And it is also relevant to note that efforts similar to Monmouth Act, similar to the holistic Promise Neighborhood program that Dominic Lee here at our meeting has both established and brought to great heights in Newark, similar to the Promise Neighborhood, which is holistic in Camden and run through the Center for Family Services. These are programs that embrace a holistic approach to the social determinants of health. They don't say, here's a mental health problem, here's a drug addiction problem, here's a child without home problem. Here's a problem that has nothing to do with children, but it has to do with families because there are families without children. Here's a problem that has to do with parents or fathers. Each of those on its own can't be addressed fully without looking at the environment in which it happens and the circumstances and bringing together both the ideas and the resources, which are still divided through agencies at the state level. By being divided, they can't be effective. And this bill and the efforts of those who've contributed to it here is transformational in its potential. And the importance of the legislation is that there have been efforts at this going back 20 years. I'd like to say that in many instances here in New Jersey, Tom's been part of that, but it's happened in other places across the country. Without this bill, all of our efforts and these ideas are at risk of a turn in the winds of time, change, politics, whatever you want, and they get set aside, left out, and you have to start from scratch 2, 3, or 4 years later. That's what makes this bill really, really important. How did we get to where we are today is, in fact, a function of another really important initiative, which was our policy paper development, which again, members of this group contributed enormous amounts of insight and time to doing it. And it's worth my referencing a couple of the findings of those policy papers, which, Kathy, going back to your comment about the summit, these policy papers will also frame how the discussion at the summit level focuses on family success in a holistic fashion. We had one policy group, 20 people all participating around financial security. And the issues that were considered the principal domains of financial security, oh, kudos to George Cruz, who's with us today from Citizens Bank, and who was central to developing this financial security initiative when he was at LISC. Housing and food security, employment and entrepreneurship, community development, self-healing communities. Those are the pillars around which financial security is built, along with wealth building. And what did they see as the public sector barriers? Exclusionary zoning, inadequate multilingual accessibility, deficient transit services, insufficient affordable housing, punitive law enforcement. That's only some. And what did they think of as private sector barriers? Food deserts, unaddressed environmental hazards, inadequate utilities, derelict housing, obviously. My point here is that we are focused on families, but the circumstances and issues that are going to enable us to create a fairer New Jersey, that are going to enable us to build family success in communities across the state that often sit right next to communities where opportunities abound, but they don't cross the barrier, is to recognize those differences. And that's where I have to give a special comment to Sheila Oliver. When this bill was first drafted, there was a sort of a contest over whether how to construct this bill, which would be an independent body with community voice representing the majority of its membership, and where it fits in the state. And because it obviously involves a great deal of family issues, we have worked closely with the Department of Children and Families, but also had the benefit of the Department of Community Affairs involved both in our policy papers and in ongoing meetings like this, creating opportunity. I mention this because as you listen to these issues, and because of a development in the drafting of the bill, we are now at a point where it is really important that we find an appropriate marriage between activity that's going on right now. How do we build that social determinants of health, that holistic approach, as effectively as possible? And the bill does that. Now to the legislation itself, and what we think of as a moment of real importance. And when I say we, it's the sponsors, all of the prime sponsors, and many of those. How we get to enactment quickly. This bill has been in the legislature with very little change for 4 years now, and it is now in committee and hopefully scheduled for hearing, if not now, early in 2024. We had a meeting with the governor's council in which, and I think this was a proposal that came out of the Department of Children and Families because of the nature of it. It was suggested that instead of a Family Success Council exclusively devoted to success, that it be merged into and sort of subsumed by the task force on child abuse, a task force on child abuse and neglect, which exists today, has been there for 20 years. It includes the superintendent of state police, 2 judges who are experienced in litigating and overseeing child abuse cases. It includes the public defender and a number of other enterprises that are devoted to ensuring that child abuse, which continues to be an issue of extreme importance, would not be lost in the course of building family success at the same time. The concern on our side is that that approach undermines and is completely contrary to turning the state's attention towards putting in place the resources that will enable families to succeed. And when I say families, I go back to saying families that want children but don't have them, families that may never have children and no longer have children, families that are families of 1 or 2 because that's the world that they have found themselves in. That's what the equity approach that we're advocating suggests. So the response has been twofold. One, our sponsors agreed that this approach did not make sense. It was actually a substitute bill. So you take all of the bill that's been there for 4 years and take it out and insert this in its place. Are going to go ahead and proceed with the bill that has been sitting in the legislature and to which so many here have made their central theme. And in addition to that, as we look at the issues that surround the social determinants of health, the issue remains independent counsel, standalone, not part of any department, but affiliated with some department, either Children and Families or going back to earlier drafts, Department of Community Affairs. And the thinking now is that the Department of Community Affairs, surrounded by these issues of housing, financial security, transit, economic opportunity, is a more natural partner. And there's another point which makes this even more persuasive. A year ago, led by Sheila Oliver, the governor created the task force on wealth inequality. Well, wealth inequality is about as central to family success and the issues that we have been deliberating here as any I can think of. Having them housed in an in but not of framework that will enable a collaboration at that level that I think will be profound and effective. And any of you who would look now at the Task Force on Wealth Inequalities mission and activities to date would see a significant overlap about creating success. Creating success. We're pretty good at treating distress. We may not get the best results, but we know how to intervene and we certainly know how to spend money. We're still spending 90% of money that's intended to address inequality on either strictly distress treatment in our state, goes with all agencies, or on some marginal, a little bit of distress and a little bit of help. 10% or less out of what's now probably $9 billion is being spent on efforts to enable families, children, adults to succeed, returning residents, etc. That's what we're about, and that's what this bill is about. So this is where we stand today. Many of you have sent great letters of support to the committee members who will hear this bill, and to the sponsors whom I mentioned earlier, and to the governor's staff to ensure that everyone knows what a wide range of support this bill enjoys. What we need to recognize is that this year or next year, this bill will put in place the tools for moving forward that have been picked up and dropped in small and large ways over the 40 years that I've been involved in these issues. And this is our chance to put them firmly in the hands in a codified fashion and get us across the finish line. So we're hoping that there will be a committee meeting. This is a very rushed period. The legislative session ends in early January. And after a committee meeting of both Senate and Assembly, and perhaps Senator Gopal has some insight on that, there would have to be a floor vote. The floor vote requires agreement amongst the leadership, that's the Speaker and the Senate President, that they will post the bill. And when this bill was first drafted, we requested over 3 years, $772 million to advance family success across the state. Well, that sent a shockwave through all those who were looking at the budget. And we are now, I believe, comfortably and aggressively committed to a $4 million budget for fiscal year 2024, which is already in the fiscal year 2024 budget. And that's what you can thank, particularly Assemblyman Atkins and Assemblywoman Sumter for getting into the budget. But then again, the governor signed it as well. That $772 million sounds like so much. It is less than 10%. That was over 3 years, less than 10% of what the state commits to this area every one of those years. So it is less than 3% of what we're spending today, treating distress, not solving the problem, but managing it. So put aside that that is an aspiration we won't reach right away, but it wasn't an inappropriate goal at the outset, and we'll start to climb that hill. Assemblyman Atkins has already said, I am going to work on getting funding increased for next year, and I believe he will. He has been extraordinary in this. So we have $4 million to plant the flag, set the stage, turn that over to communities so that they can begin to organize holistic, success-directed service network that will enable economic security, housing security, food security, and all the other elements that they define, not us, that they define as the next steps down the road towards family success. And that's where we are today, waiting for those committee hearings, totally excited about the progress that we've made and would not have made without the voices that are represented here and many more. We are in an extraordinary position, and I have written the governor on more than one occasion to remind him that this initiative will place New Jersey in the forefront of addressing social and economic issues that this country has been wrestling with and which have been very much at the fore before, but which the pandemic revealed in really stark terms, that those who think that we have created an equality of opportunity and equality of security recognize that that's not the case. We're on the road to do that, and each of us here today is doing something to support that. So that's the update, and I love and welcome any questions and applaud you for your attention, but more important, for your commitment.
Jim, I saw a comment by Dominique that I can't just let go, because ultimately, and this is, you know, you've been at this for a while, and so have I, but ultimately, this was always going to boil down to issues of control and power, and who's going to make decisions about, you know, what people get and what they want, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think we are at a crossroad. I think, this movement has gotten further, I think, than we ever expected in one sense. But we are at a crossroads now in terms of whether the idea that people living in local communities and, parents and family members and local government and practitioners are actually going to be authorized through this legislation to be decision makers about their lives and not exclusively bureaucracy. So I think that we shouldn't minimize, how far we've come, but we have battles that are ahead of us, and I don't think we should minimize them. And then I want to say one other thing about these community action forums, because I keep thinking about what's happened in the community in terms of the lack of connection that people have to one another. And so much of it is because everything's homogenized, but there were two incidents that came up in two community action forums. One, I think, was in South Ward in Newark, with Dominique's session, and then one in with kids in, I think it was Asbury Park. But in both instances, there were kids who were afraid to walk to school because the streetlights were out, and they were, they were afraid to go to school and come home from school. And in the second richest or first richest state, in the United States, the richest country in the world, the idea that kids are afraid to walk to school because they don't feel safe is absurd. And if we don't have institutionalized way for those kinds of issues to become raised and people feeling they need to do something about it, I don't think we're going to make any progress. And that's really what we're trying to create here is how do we create the conditions for people to have the best chance, in their lives. And so we are at a crossroads. I'm looking at Kathy Collins' face. I'm wondering what she's thinking. I always ask when I can see her face, what are you thinking, Kathy?
If I wanted you to know it, I would say it. No, I was just trying to digest the idea that they wanted to make this part of, from what I understand, the task force on child abuse and neglect, right?
Yeah.
Well, that to me doesn't make any sense, but I'll tell you why later.
Why?
Because it has, I was on it for a while, and at that time, it had all of those positions that Tim talked about posted, but none of them came. They all sent representatives from their departments or their divisions or their offices. And so you weren't really talking to the powerful people, even though they were listed as members. It does a lot of good things, but it's very focused on neglect and abuse. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
Rose, you're on mute, Rose.
Mute.
There we are.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that as well, because I agree. I don't think it belongs in that particular committee. And I do think the Department of Community Affairs makes sense, because if you look at the research that shows if you give people more money, just money, families, money to pay for their food, to supplement their employment, etc., incidents of child abuse and neglect go down dramatically. Juvenile justice goes down because there's less stress on the family. So I agree. This is a community initiative, and God knows I am committed to prevention of child abuse and neglect and all that stuff. But this is different. It's a different approach. And I do think it's really important for us to maintain that integrity. The other piece, and it's really more my forgetting or lack of remembering, whatever, the $4 million we're asking for, you say it's in the budget, right? So what are we asking for? What needs to happen to make that happen?
We need the bill to be passed. In other words, the bill has not, the money's been appropriated, but the bill that creates the Family Success Council, and I think more important, lays the groundwork for creating community and local family success councils frankly, of which Monmouth Acts is kind of a template because it's a public-private partnership at the county
Right.
level. So that's the
Okay.
purpose.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to see what we were asking for.
Thank you. And the idea that we have come this far and recognize as a community, call ourselves a community, that it is not, we have worked hard at tackling problems after they have metastasized and grown difficult, but never really invested heavily in the idea that the environment in which those problems are cultivated is something we do have control over and can make a difference is a challenge. And it's a challenge for the American way, where there is a hypothetical view that, oh, you bootstrap your way in this country and you can make it. Everyone starts with an equal chance. Untrue. All the evidence points to that. And we now are at a point where we're mature enough as a nation, smart enough as individuals to say, not true, great goal that would be the case. Well, let's start to build, put the building blocks in place, the community initiatives in place that will actually make a greater degree of reality surround that. And these community action forums have been enlightening in the way that they have reinforced when you don't have a roof over your head, when there isn't food on the table, when it isn't safe to be on the streets after dark, when you are breathing bad air, when you're not sure you can drink the water coming out of your tap, you are not in an environment that is going to promote family well-being and successful children and beyond. So we are on a very exciting path, and you are the reason that it is gaining momentum. Voices of those of us who've been in the front of this are only as relevant and as heard as the unified sense that this learning community brings to this enterprise.
Can I real quick?
David, please.
I just want to piggyback off what Rose was saying. Kentucky has a law in effect that differentiate between neglect and poverty, since we've been speaking about poverty so much. And if we invest in that housing, food security, and stuff like that for families, it's a known fact and data show that less children are taken out of the home and put into foster care because we are looking at poverty. It's a different, poverty is not neglect. Poverty is that you don't have the resources to put food on the table or pay your rent. Neglect is you have the resources, but you choose not to. So, that difference, then, like I said, with Kentucky having that law, they have shown that data has shown that removing children from the home has gone down tremendously. So I definitely say we're on the right track. I don't have to say that because I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I just wanted to bring it up again that it states looking at that. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could, I wanted to call out one of our members, Carolyn McCombs, in part just to thank her for making the extraordinary effort to be here. And I only know it's extraordinary because I'm somewhat aware of the challenges she has been going through to make a extraordinary and pioneering restorative justice project become a reality in Patterson, where she has done so much else. But Carolyn, your perspective on this holistic approach, which your Family Success Center and frankly career embody, is important, and it is your activities that inform the framework and the making of this, and your effort, which I think it's worth sharing, to broaden your horizons through this restorative justice initiative alongside the Family Success Center it speaks to a very important thing, which is as important as the holistic, let's not be siloed approach. Where in your life you can be supported in a way that will enhance your trajectory matters a lot. We all recognize, and many of us here have done extraordinary work, not me, but others, on early childhood. But there's adolescence, and there's post-adolescence, and there's what life throws at you. Carolyn has really found a way through the New Destiny Family Success Center, and now with this additional project, a way of stretching that spectrum of service. And Carolyn, if you just take a couple of minutes, we'd love to get caught up on not all the challenges, but what that restorative justice program potential is.
Thank you so much, Tim. I have to be perfectly honest. Being on this call just gives me a surge of energy and keeps me motivated in the journey. And you all may or may not be aware that the Restorative and Transformative Justice Act for Youth and Families was passed, I think it's now almost a year, 2 years ago, which is kind of similar path that we're on. And the basic gist of the legislation was instead of investing in incarcerating youth, we take those funds and invest them in the prevention in diversion of youth from incarceration. As a result of that, this legislation did pass, and the appropriation of funding was made available. 4 cities were chosen to pilot this initiative: Camden, Trenton, Newark, and Patterson. And as a result, all of the county youth services commissions put out RFPs for local nonprofits or community organizations to respond. Our organization responded to the RFP in the Passaic County area on behalf of Patterson, and we were thrilled to be chosen as the recipient for the Restorative and Transformative Justice. And what we're calling it is Dream Center Hub. And as I looked at the potential of this opportunity, the thing that hit me the most was that the legislation called for, of course, diversion and prevention of incarceration of youth between the ages of 8 and 26 in the juvenile justice system, but it called for wraparound services and supports to surround not only the youth, but also their family. What better model could I think of than a Family Success Center? That's what we've been doing, putting together this wraparound model and supporting families in healthy, strong stabilization of families and prevention of child abuse and neglect. So all of that came together, and when I saw the RFP, I thought, wow, I think this is a good way to marry 2 very closely related needs in our community. And I think other people agreed with that. And of course, I think that led to us being able to be awarded. Everything we're saying in this conversation is essential. So just to go along with what David was saying, there's also research that is now validated that when you make jobs available for youth in high poverty areas, crime goes down significantly. There's no argument. And if there are opportunities for youth to have jobs that are, let's just say, meet the demands of the living, cost of living in their communities, they significantly disinvolve from criminal activity. That's not rocket science. Same thing if you can help a family where they're in a rental issue, where they need housing or they need food, the more that we can make those resources available, child abuse and neglect go down. And I'm excited that we have the potential to see this legislation pass. And I think it will prove what we've already known. And cities all over the country are looking at this juvenile justice initiative through a employment lens. And once they see that the resources put in the right place divert those youth from being involved in law enforcement, it's an easy investment to make a case for. So I'm just excited about the opportunity to be connected with all of you. Thank you for inspiring me today. I definitely want to do a forum in the Passaic County area, and I don't want to call Enga out, but Enga Spungen is on the line from Patterson Alliance. And so, you know, maybe it's something we come together on and look at a citywide opportunity to again host one of the forums. Thank you.
That's terrific. Tim, I have a thought that comes up in the middle of this, particularly when I see Carolyn, and because she inspires me so much for the work. And we have a cliche about destiny, that because Carolyn is on a path of her own destiny, which is just, it's a beautiful thing that's happening. But you know, just in looking around who's on this call, there is a lot of innovation in this room, and people have a lot of ideas about how things could be better. I think about the Little Hands Big Futures initiative in Middlesex County. I think Lynn Seward, I think about some of the conversations we've had in the last couple of days. And part of this movement has to be, how can we all learn together? Because the knowledge together is like immense. But the other part of it is how can we capitalize on all the innovative ideas that people have, and that the structures of government and the structure of foundations, et cetera, are supporting innovation rather than, you know, I think about, you know, Gloria Tansky, what you've had to jump through to try to get, you know, various, you know, powers that be to support what you're trying to do. We should be celebrating innovation and celebrating people trying things that are different, rather than say, well, that's not the way that it's always been done. Or I think about Colleen Nelson and her parent advocate, you know, and the work that Colleen, you're doing with early childhood success. And there is so much we could do if the community is unleashed to innovate based upon not only the voices of people in the community, but with the full participation of people in the community. And I think a lot of that is reflected in this legislation.
If I could just, I'm Juanita Vargas, I'm with the United Way of Greater Union County. I just want to sort of, you know, remind all of us that our new Americans, families that are new to the country, and everything that we do, we got to try to make sure that we're inclusive, right? That programs that are developed are not exclusive and that don't require certain documentation, because we know that those families often are the ones that are struggling the hardest, who have the least access to public resources, who are living in fear, who have not had the opportunity to benefit from a lot of the COVID-related relief funds. And one of the things that we struggle with a lot here is around the programming that is designed to exclude certain people from the community. And I just want us to keep thinking about that as we're moving forward and having these discussions.
Absolutely.
Such an important point. One of the interesting things that you may have noticed and it was harder to hear, was in our Community Action Forum sort of snapshot, was that gathering of men who were in fact largely homeless or have experienced homelessness recently. First of all, it was important that they be heard. Second, it was important that we recognize that part of family success is success for those who are homeless. And third, going back to diversifying and expanding our forums, it was largely men, not women. And there are women who have that same experience, many women with children. And part of sort of opening our eyes, and I say ours, meaning those of us who are as privileged as I consider myself and others to have enjoyed a healthy and less stressed experience, that we recognize that these issues are at our doorstep every day, and that we have an obligation and an opportunity to contribute to resolving them. And that's what these forums are bringing to light, and sort of expanding horizons, and also helping all of us, but in particular those who are empowered when we get to the summit, to embrace the idea that this is a shared responsibility and opportunity. And that's what, Juanita, your point about new members of this country and society deserve the attention and support that that is represented here.
Excuse me, Tim, I see that Senator
Yeah.
Gonzalez has joined us.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sorry,
he-
that's me. I'm Mike. I'm on our Zoom. But he should be jumping on any moment.
Okay, I thought it was the senator. Right?
Sorry about that.
Mike, welcome, and it's a pleasure to
Thank
meet
you.
you. And
Good to
thank
see you in
for
person.
joining the learning community, even briefly.
He will be on though. And I'll text him and get an ETA right now.
Great. Hey, Dominique, are you still with us? I know that you've been largely not and not, your handsome face hasn't been visible, but you've been with us. And Dominique and I had a conversation 2 weeks ago or so, just around how he runs the Promise Neighborhood and the Brick Education Network in Newark, and how he's navigated the evolution of that enterprise directly out of initiatives and ideas that have emerged from the community. He spoke about it at our rally, but he has just undertaken 1 or 2 new initiatives just as a reflection of what community needs represents, and one of them around healthcare. And I embarrass myself, Dominique, by not being certain where those initiatives stand, but I believe you've made significant progress. And just a brief sharing of how the issue arises and how you, with the support of others, generate answers that are reflective of the priority that the community has established, not established by others, would be really great.
Yeah, so I think for us, and transparently in all vulnerability too, is that we've learned a lot over the past 7 years doing this work. And we found ourselves becoming an extension of government to be transparent. And what I mean by that is that just basically a typical social service give and get relationship with the people that we were serving. And we took a step back and started to really reflect on, is that what we want to do? Are we actually moving the needle? Are we actually changing the paradigm? And we started to see a lot of the change in the paradigm when we kind of opened our wellness center, which is, believe it or not, in the South Ward of Newark, New Jersey. We have an amazing hospital, Beth Hospital, but the hospital is not made for proactive healthcare management. And so when we opened the wellness center, we started to see kind of a culture of health take place. People started to come, manage their health, have relationships with our community outreach people. It was a different relationship than what we had before in our family support division. So we made a conscious effort to really move ourselves away from social service. And I don't want to discredit that, because there is a need for that. That's just not the lane for us. That's government kind of aspect. So we really have transformed ourselves more towards the economic mobility way of working in partnership with community members that includes, what does it mean to get a meaningful job with meaningful career skill sets? How do we, support you around your housing and things like that? And coming up with what is the defined prescription that will allow for you to live the dreams that you set for themselves. Someone challenged me, well, why do they need a coach? And I said, well, I have a coach. I've been a seasoned executive for 18 years, and I've had a coach probably for 12 years. And if it wasn't for my coach meeting with her on a monthly basis, I would not be where I'm at. So those are the kind of the transitions that we've been making here. We're excited for where we're going. It is scary be honest with you, but a lot of the conversations that we had here as a collective, I will say I took back to our team, and it has really helped kind of push us forward. So yeah, it's a journey. You're on mute, Tim.
I just heard from Mike Iliano, who is the policy director for Senator Gopal, who, as it turns out, did join us, but somehow we did not pick up on that. Our error. It's sort of like you were on your way home and all of a sudden you got tagged out at third. But let me start by just asking Mike, if you could, to catch us up on the senator's commitment to this and also where we're headed. And if you have insight on the legislative process, that's what we're obviously most interested in.
Sure.
I think it is worth noting that one of the senator's closest allies and supporters in Monmouth County, Wendy DePedro, is with us as well. And I regret that her florid introduction of the senator will have to wait another occasion unless we'd like to give her a chance to remind us all what an extraordinary public servant he is before you speak. And Wendy, I think your support of this, of what we are doing, and your commitment to it is demonstrative of where not just Monmouth County, but the senator and others have learned and become enthusiastic supporters of what community-based and directed services can be. So Mike, if we would just take a minute, I would love to hear from Wendy. If we're not going to have the benefit of the senator's comments, I will say in advance that Mike just told me that he's on the phone with the governor's office, and I wouldn't want to interfere with that exchange at the moment. So Wendy.
No, we definitely wouldn't want to interfere with that. That's for sure. And I was looking forward to having like the most fun part of this call and being able to introduce the senator, who is probably one of my most favorite people. He's just been remarkable in terms of what he's done for, particularly for, my background, mental health services. And, so much of this movement is tied to the fact that there is no mental health without the social determinants of health. And so all those things are just, all in the same sphere, and it's the best partnership ever. And so, we are, with Senator Gopal, we've been so thankful for him because he has supported legislation, advocacy, and funded, significantly supported funding for mental health services. And in some of that funding, we've been direct recipients of in terms of our Red Bank Resource Network, which is really a family success model. It's not funded as a family success center, but that's what we do there. And it's a result of his efforts that we've been able to keep those doors open for the last 3 years. So we are congratulating him on his new victory, which was a landslide, by the way. And we're very proud of that in Monmouth County. And thanks to the senator. And I'm sorry I didn't have the opportunity to introduce him properly today.
That's okay. And I'll be sure to pass all the kind words along. I know he appreciates it. And the work Wendy does in Monmouth County is absolutely incredible. So credit to you also.
Thank you, Mike.
And I guess to, tag up on Tim's question about the legislative process. This bill's been around for a while. The senators, remained a prime sponsor of it. And I think one of the things is Wendy highlighted is, mental health is very multifaceted, and that the more we learn about it, the more we're seeing that it's not just the services that are traditionally pegged as mental health services. There's things like making sure folks have enough to eat and have the kind of community support and family support that they need to live stable, productive lives that contributes to mental health. So this bill obviously contributes to that. We were able to get some money in the budget that this bill would kind of unlock. There's, as Tim knows well, there's some dispute between the governor's office and the legislature on what the final bill should look like. And we're kind of going back and forth and negotiating that right now. The legislature is frankly in kind of a weird period right now. It's what's known as the lame duck period, where the session ends January 8th, I believe it is. And basically any bill that hasn't passed by then needs to be reintroduced and kind of starts from square one. So the bills that are moving right now, or the focus is really on bills that everyone knows are going to pass and make it to the governor's desk by the end of that session. And we're just trying, and will be signed by the governor, because you don't want to spend the time advancing something that then the governor's either going to veto, or what he can do when the session ends is what's known as a pocket veto, where he just doesn't take action on it. And it essentially dies. It's at basically any other time in the session, that's not an option, but when the session's ending, that's a possibility. So we're trying to navigate that right now and get this moving. I don't have the assurance that it's going to yet, unfortunately, but we're working hard with the governor's office to try to reconcile where they are. And again, the money's in the budget. So, you know, the focus is really getting that out. And then if more work needs to be done, there can always be another bill in the future. But I think the priority right now is making sure that that money can be released as soon as possible and go towards where it's intended to go towards. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Do you know if there'll be another committee meeting of the Health and Human Services Committee in December?
So there is one scheduled for Thursday. The agenda's been released and the bill's unfortunately not on it right now. This time of year that changes at the drop of a hat. So I've seen bills added to agendas like the morning of the meeting. So it's not a death knell that it's not on the agenda right now. I'd also flag there's dates on the calendar that it's called committees at the call of the Senate President. So basically, if there's unfinished business, the Senate President can allow a meeting that wasn't previously scheduled. So there's still time. Basically, it's going to come down to the wire, most likely, as everything does in the legislature. But January 8th is very quick, but in legislative terms, there's a lot of time to try to get this done. So no one should be discouraged yet. And there's a lot of negotiations going on behind the scenes. The senator could very well be discussing this with the governor's office right now.
Great, thank you. All right, well, Tom, I think we're going to turn it back to you. It is exactly 10 o'clock.
Okay, no, I'm trying to see if Thomas Owens is with us still.
No,
maybe not. So anybody have any final thoughts or offerings or holiday greetings or worries or whatever you want to raise? It's a good time to raise them. I will say one thing that strikes me out of this, and I did have the opportunity to sit in on one of Wendy DePedro's resource gatherings, and there are so many things that are going on through this learning community and the work the work that you're all doing out there that is not supported by state policy or state funds, and it ought to be. And that's what this is really all about. So anything you can do to encourage legislators, to encourage local government folks to support this work. But I would say that we are not going to stop. We're going to continue this work no matter what happens. And your commitment is inspiring to us. So hope everybody has a great holiday, and onward we go. We will be in touch to keep you apprised of what's happening. And Kathy Rowe, I'm so glad that you have jumped into the fray.
I just want to say one thing, that is that, the fact that we've gotten pushback should be good news to all of us, because it means that the status quo, we're finally starting to threaten it. So I think we should look at this as very positive and be ready to fight for what we all believe in.
I would just add, if anyone has not had a chance to or wants to express your support to the committee members, our sponsors, let us know. You can reach me by email or in any other fashion. It's on this invitation, and we'll get you information on where that needs to go. It's obviously a very pressured time. We are deeply grateful, Mike, and he should know that, to the senator for his vigilant and continuing support. And we had a discussion before he joined that made it very clear that the idea of the existing legislation being what this learning community embraces is exactly where we want to land. And we want to make certain that he's aware of the support that he's getting for his support of it.
I just want to say that in the upcoming new year, we did speak about engagement for parents. We are having our parent leadership event, and this is a great opportunity for everyone statewide to get parents in your community involved in and engaged. This is a way when we need them to come out, we can only ask them on certain occasions. Let's engage them, recognize them, and continue to make their voice strong statewide. And I think parent leadership is a wonderful way to go into it into the new year. So I will be sending everyone on this line information. And if you have parents, let's engage them. Let's recognize them for their strengths. Okay, if you have any questions about it, you can email me. I'll throw my email in the chat. Thanks again. Have a happy holiday to everyone, and shalom, peace to everyone in this world while we're kind of going a little tipsy-turvy. But let's just hold on to each other and push. Let's push statewide. Let's push it and get this job done. I love the finish line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, Tim, just in case nobody saw it, there is a note from the senator in the chat.
Great.
So
yeah, I just put our office's email in the chat. So if anyone would like to reach out on this or anything else, you know, especially on mental health legislation, we're really relying on our stakeholders who are experts in the field. And I have a liberal arts background, so the folks who are on the ground and, you know, have the necessary expertise are invaluable. So, and to tag up on what Kathleen said, I'd say that the fact that the governor's office is giving this attention at all is a good sign. There's something like 8,000 bills. So obviously some of them need to be ignored. The fact that they're not ignoring this means it's being worked on. So progress is always slow in the legislature, but it's progress nonetheless.
Thank you, Mike.
Great.
All righty then. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and hope you have a happy holiday. And Ms. Finley, we are with you.
Thank you. Take care.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Happy holidays,
holidays.
everyone. Thank
Take
you all.
care.
Happy holidays, everyone.